Hi, today's lecture is about Paglandas sa Wika, Notes on the Filipino Language. And what it is we're trying to follow the route the Filipino language took from the time when it was called Tagalog, then it was called Filipino, and then it was called Filipino. Let's go! Okay, so this is our outline. We're looking at, number one, the brief history of the language. Then we're looking at the script more closely. And then we're going to sum up and talk a little bit about how the script was lost and why it was lost. Okay? So first, what do we need to know? We need to know that the first changes in the language happened during the first constitutional provision. What happened was in 1935, there was a constitution for the Commonwealth government. Backtrack a little bit. This was the American colonial period. And for some time during this period, Filipinos were advocating for independence. So what happened? Finally, around 1935, the American government said, okay, we're going to give you independence, but first, you have to learn first about how to govern yourself, as if, we needed to learn that. So, they said that there's going to be a Commonwealth government from 1935 to 1945. And thus, for that government, there was a constitution. So we call this now the 1935 Constitution. So why is this important? Because of the 1935 Constitution, in Article 14, Section 3, it says that the Congress shall take steps toward the development and adoption of a common national language based on one of the existing native languages. Unless otherwise provided by law, English and Spanish shall continue as official languages. So, what does that mean? So now there was a chance to have a national language. You have to remember, and backtrack a little again, that there are more than 60 or 70 ethno-linguistic groups in the Philippines. And each of these ethno-linguistic groups, they had their own language. So the question is, how can you speak a common tongue? So what happened in 1935? In 1935, there were now steps taken to have a national language. What's the problem though? The problem is that English and Spanish remained as official languages. What does it mean? It means now that in official documents, or for example in courts, Tagalog at that time, which was chosen, was still not the official language. It means that if you were to testify in court and you can't speak English, then what you're saying needs to be translated, even if the judge or the other lawyers or everyone else can actually understand Tagalog or the language that you're speaking. It also means, therefore, that if you are a farmer and someone wants to grab your land and he or she has an official document written in English, it's possible that you can't understand that document because you don't know English. Okay. Still, in 1937, what happened was the Surian ng Wikang Pambansa, or the Institute of National Language, was established. Okay, what did that mean? Okay, it meant, therefore, that this institute, it was their task to choose the language upon which the national language would be based on. And they chose Tagalog. Why? So they gave several reasons why they wanted to choose Tagalog. Number one, Tagalog is widely spoken and is the language most understood in all the regions of the Philippines. And you may understand, why is that? Why is it understood the most? It could be, a number of reasons. It could be because for a long time now, the Tagalog region has been the center of economic and political activity, and therefore people did a lot of trade in that region or negotiated in that region, and so had to learn the language of that region. Second, it's not divided into smaller separate languages as Visayan is. Now you might ask, what is Visayan? So actually, The Visayan languages are the languages of the ethno-linguistic groups found in Central Philippines. And so it's divided into a lot of islands. So you have Cebuano, you have Aklanon, Capisnon, Ilonggo, Waray, and so on and so forth. Okay? A third, its literary tradition is the richest and most developed and extensive. And people ask, why? And it's because of the magazines. Why? So you must remember that the other languages did not have a lot of magazines publishing short stories or poetry or novels and so on and so forth. Nor did they have publishing houses publishing books in those languages. But Tagalog had the advantage of being the language in Metro Manila, and or which wasn't Metro Manila at that time, but in the Tagalog region. But and therefore these publishing houses published works in Tagalog, producing a rich literary tradition. And fourth, Tagalog has always been the language of Manila. And fifth, Tagalog is a language of the Revolution and the Katipunan. Why is this important? Because you have to remember this was 1935. People still had a memory of what the revolution was in 1896. And the revolutionary organization, Katipunan, right? It was important for them to use Tagalog in the newspaper that they published called the Kalayaan or Freedom. And these were the reasons given why Tagalog was chosen as a national language. Let's move on.